Hi friends, welcome back to Talevora. Before Muhammad Ali became one of the most famous athletes in the world, he was just a young boy who discovered boxing after something was taken from him and decided he wanted to fight back. What followed was a remarkable journey filled with ambition, discipline, confidence, setbacks, and an incredible determination to prove himself. From a young fighter with a dream to a global icon whose words and actions reached far beyond the boxing ring, this is the story of Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali was born Cassius Marcellus Clay Jr. on January 17, 1942, in Louisville, Kentucky. He grew up in a working-class family, with his father working as a sign and mural painter and his mother supporting the family through difficult times. Nothing about his childhood suggested that he would one day become one of the most recognizable people on earth. As a young boy, Cassius was energetic, confident, and full of personality. But his journey toward boxing began in an unexpected way. When he was 12 years old, his bicycle was stolen. Angry and upset, he told a local police officer that he wanted to find the person responsible and fight him. The officer, Joe Martin, was also a boxing instructor. Instead of simply telling the young boy to calm down, Martin encouraged him to learn how to fight properly first. Cassius began training at Martin's boxing gym. At the beginning, he was not an obviously polished fighter. He had to learn the basics, improve his footwork, develop his coordination, and understand how to control his energy inside the ring. But he possessed something that could not easily be taught: an extraordinary belief in himself. He trained with determination and quickly began competing in amateur boxing. His confidence grew with every fight. He was not afraid to talk about his ambitions, and he often predicted that he would become a champion long before most people believed him. While many young fighters focused only on strength, Cassius developed a style based heavily on speed, movement, reflexes, and timing. He learned to move around opponents rather than simply standing in front of them and exchanging punches. His quick hands and fast footwork made him difficult to hit. Outside the ring, his personality was becoming just as noticeable as his boxing ability. He was outspoken, energetic, playful, and extremely confident. He enjoyed talking about himself and his future. Some people found his confidence entertaining, while others considered him arrogant. But Cassius did not seem interested in becoming quieter just to make other people comfortable. His amateur career continued to develop, and one of the biggest opportunities of his young life arrived in 1960. Cassius Clay qualified for the United States Olympic boxing team and traveled to Rome for the Summer Olympics. He was only 18 years old. At the Olympic Games, the young fighter competed in the light heavyweight division. Despite his age, he remained confident. He defeated his opponents and reached the final, where he faced Poland's Zbigniew Zakowski. Cassius won the fight by decision and became an Olympic gold medalist. For the young fighter from Louisville, the victory was a major achievement. He returned to the United States with a gold medal and a growing reputation. But winning an Olympic medal did not mean that his professional career would automatically be easy. Cassius turned professional later in 1960. His early professional fights showed that his unusual style could work against experienced opponents. He moved quickly, kept his hands active, and used his speed to frustrate fighters who expected a more traditional heavyweight approach. He also continued developing his public personality. He talked about his fights before they happened. He predicted exactly what round he would win in. He created rhymes, made jokes, and confidently told reporters that he was going to become the greatest fighter in the world. At first, many people thought he was simply a loud proud young boxer looking for attention. But inside the ring, his performances were beginning to make it difficult to dismiss him. He kept winning. One of the most important moments of his early professional career came in 1964 when he earned a chance to fight Sonny Liston for the World Heavyweight Championship. Liston was considered one of the most intimidating fighters in boxing. He was powerful, experienced, and widely expected to defeat the young challenger. Cassius Clay did not agree. Before the fight, he repeatedly told the world that he would defeat Liston. His confidence was so extreme that many people viewed it as an act. But when the fight finally happened, something unexpected occurred. Clay's speed and movement created problems for Liston. He was able to stay away from Liston's strongest punches while landing combinations of his own. During the fight, Clay's vision became temporarily impaired, but he continued to survive and eventually regained his ability to see clearly. Liston did not answer the bell for the 7th round. Cassius Clay had defeated Sonny Liston and become the world heavyweight champion. The young fighter who had started boxing after losing a bicycle had reached the highest level of his sport. But becoming champion was only the beginning. His life outside the ring was about to change just as dramatically as his boxing career. Soon after winning the championship, Cassius Clay announced that he had joined the Nation of Islam and that he would no longer use the name given to him at birth. He adopted the name Muhammad Ali. The name change became part of a much larger transformation in his public identity. Ali was no longer simply a young boxer trying to win championships. He was becoming a public figure who openly spoke about race, religion, identity, and the treatment of Black Americans. His words attracted enormous attention. Some people admired him for speaking openly about issues that many athletes avoided. Others strongly criticized him. But Ali continued moving forward. His confidence remained enormous. His boxing career continued, and the young champion was becoming a completely different kind of celebrity. He was no longer famous only because of what he could do inside a boxing ring. He was becoming famous because of who he was. After becoming the heavyweight champion, Muhammad Ali's life moved far beyond boxing. He was now one of the most talked about young athletes in America, but his growing fame also brought enormous pressure. Ali continued to defend his championship and became increasingly confident in his ability to control a fight with speed, movement, and intelligence. He did not fight like the traditional heavyweight people expected. Instead of relying only on power, he moved around the ring, kept his opponents guessing, and used his quick hands to create openings. But outside the ring, Ali was becoming involved in issues that could change his entire career. In 1966, the United States was deeply involved in the Vietnam War. Ali was drafted into the U.S. Army, but he made it clear that he did not want to serve as a soldier. His religious beliefs and personal convictions led him to refuse induction. Ali's decision created enormous controversy. He was not simply refusing to participate in a boxing match or making a personal career decision. He was challenging the expectations of the country at a time when opposition to the war was becoming increasingly visible. The consequences were severe. Ali was convicted of refusing induction into the armed forces. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison and fined $10,000. He remained free while appealing the decision, but his boxing license was taken away and he was stripped of his heavyweight championship. For a fighter who had built his entire life around boxing, the decision was devastating. Ali was only in his 20s, physically in his prime, and suddenly he could not legally compete professionally in the United States. For several years, the boxing ring was taken away from him. Instead of disappearing, however, Ali began speaking at universities, colleges, and public events. He talked about his beliefs, religion, racial inequality, the war, and the choices he had made. His public image became even more complicated. Some people considered him courageous, others considered him irresponsible. He received criticism from newspapers, politicians, sports fans, and members of the public. Ali continued defending his position. Meanwhile, he was losing valuable years of his athletic career. Then, in 1971, the United States Supreme Court overturned his conviction. After years away from professional boxing, Ali was finally able to return to the ring. But the sport had changed while he was gone. Younger fighters had emerged, and Ali had to prove that he could still compete at the highest level. His comeback became one of the most important chapters of his career. In March 1971, Ali faced Joe Frazier in what became known as the fight of the century. It was the first time two undefeated heavyweight champions had met in the professional ring. The fight took place at Madison Square Garden in New York. Ali entered the ring after years away from professional competition, while Frazier was the reigning heavyweight champion. The fight was intense from the opening bell. Ali used his movement and quick punches, but Frazier constantly pressured him and attacked his body. As the rounds passed, the fight became increasingly exhausting for both men. Ali fought until the final bell, but Frazier won by unanimous decision. For the first time in his professional career, Muhammad Ali had lost a fight. The defeat was painful, but it did not end his career. Ali continued fighting. He rebuilt his confidence and began working his way back toward another championship opportunity. His boxing style also continued to evolve. He could no longer rely only on the speed and constant movement of his younger years, so he became more strategic. He learned how to conserve energy. He learned how to absorb pressure, and he became increasingly skilled at making opponents fight the fight he wanted. In 1973, Ali suffered another major setback when he lost a decision to Ken Norton. Norton had broken Ali's jaw during the fight, yet Ali continued competing until the final bell. Instead of ending his career, the defeat motivated another comeback. Ali defeated Norton in their rematch later that year. Then came another opportunity. In 1974, Ali traveled to Kinshasa, Zaire, for a fight against the reigning heavyweight champion, George Foreman. Foreman was younger, powerful, and considered one of the most dangerous punchers in boxing. Ali was 32 years old. Many people believed his best years were already behind him. The fight became known as the Rumble in the Jungle. Instead of constantly moving around the ring as he had done earlier in his career, Ali used a surprising strategy. He allowed Foreman to throw punches while leaning against the ropes and protecting himself. The strategy was extremely risky. Foreman continued attacking, but Ali remained calm and waited for opportunities. As the rounds passed, Foreman became tired. Then Ali saw his moment. He attacked with a rapid combination of punches and knocked Foreman down in the 8th round. George Foreman could not beat the count. Muhammad Ali had become heavyweight champion again. The man who had been banned from boxing had returned to the top. But Ali's story was still far from finished. His biggest challenges were no longer only about winning fights. His body, his health, his personal relationships, and the demands of being Muhammad Ali were beginning to create a new kind of pressure. And the next chapter would test him in ways that no boxing opponent ever could. After defeating George Foreman and becoming heavyweight champion again, Muhammad Ali had reached another incredible point in his career. But the years of fighting had begun to take a toll on his body. Ali continued defending his championship against some of the best fighters of his generation. Every fight demanded more from him. His speed was still there, but the younger version of Ali who could move effortlessly around the ring was slowly changing. In 1975, Ali faced Joe Frazier again in the Philippines. The fight became known as the Thrilla in Manila. It was one of the most physically demanding fights of Ali's entire career. For 14 rounds, Ali and Frazier fought in extreme heat. Neither man was willing to give up. Both were exhausted, but they continued throwing punches. By the final rounds, Ali was struggling to continue. Frazier's trainer eventually stopped the fight before the 15th round, giving Ali the victory. Ali later described the experience as one of the closest things to death he had ever experienced. The fight showed something important about Ali's career. He was no longer simply the incredibly fast young boxer who had shocked the world against Sonny Liston. He was now an older champion who had learned to survive through experience, strategy, determination, and an extraordinary ability to handle pressure. But the victories were becoming more difficult. Ali continued fighting through the late 1970s. He lost his championship to Leon Spinks in 1978, then defeated Spinks in the rematch to become heavyweight champion for the third time. By then, Ali had achieved something almost unimaginable. He had won the heavyweight championship 3 times, but his body had paid a heavy price. Years of professional boxing had exposed him to thousands of punches. His speech gradually became slower, and his movements became less sharp than they had been during his prime. In 1981, Ali fought Trevor Berbick in what became the final professional fight of his career. Ali lost the fight by unanimous decision. He was 39 years old. After decades of training, fighting, winning, losing, traveling, and living under constant public attention, his boxing career had finally come to an end. But retirement did not make Muhammad Ali disappear. In fact, his influence continued to grow. Ali became increasingly involved in humanitarian work and traveled around the world. He met political leaders, ordinary people, children, athletes, and fans. He used his fame to support humanitarian causes and became involved in efforts to secure the release of hostages and prisoners. People who had once watched him only because of boxing now listened to him because of his personality and his life experiences. Ali's health, however, continued to decline. In 1984, he was diagnosed with Parkinson's syndrome. The disease affected his movement and speech, gradually making everyday activities more difficult. The transformation was painful to watch. The man who had once moved around a boxing ring with incredible speed now struggled to move normally. But Ali continued appearing in public. He carried the Olympic torch at the 1996 Atlanta Games. Millions of people watched as the former champion, whose hands were now shaking, slowly walked forward and lit the Olympic flame. It became one of the most emotional moments of his later life. The image was powerful because Ali no longer needed to prove anything inside a boxing ring. His legacy had already been established. He had become more than a champion. He had become a symbol of confidence, determination, individuality, and the courage to stand behind his beliefs. During his later years, Ali spent much of his time with his family and continued supporting charitable and humanitarian causes. He remained one of the most recognized people in the world. On June 3, 2016, Muhammad Ali died in Scottsdale, Arizona, at the age of 74. News of his death spread around the world. Former opponents, athletes, politicians, celebrities, and millions of ordinary fans remembered him. People remembered the championships. They remembered the famous predictions before his fights. They remembered his confidence, his humor, his speed, and his ability to turn a boxing match into an unforgettable event. But many people remembered something else as well. They remembered a young boy from Louisville who discovered boxing almost by accident. A boy who lost a bicycle. A teenager who started training. A young fighter who believed he could become the greatest. A champion who lost everything outside the ring and still found a way to return. And an older man whose body could no longer move the way it once had, but whose story continued to inspire millions. Muhammad Ali's life was never simply about winning boxing matches. It was about transformation. He began as Cassius Clay, a young boy with enormous confidence and a dream. He became Muhammad Ali, the heavyweight champion of the world. He experienced unbelievable success, painful defeats, public criticism, personal struggles, and years when he was unable to compete. Yet he continued moving forward. And perhaps that is why his story remains so powerful. Because Muhammad Ali did not become extraordinary because his life was easy. He became extraordinary because throughout the difficult moments he continued to believe in himself and continued to move forward. His boxing career ended in 1981. His life ended in 2016. But the story of Muhammad Ali continues, not simply as the story of a boxer, but as the story of a young man who dreamed of becoming great, and eventually became a name known across the entire world.